Hello and welcome. I'm Ruby Barlow and you're watching The World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at some headlines of this hour. Iranian ambassador to Beijing, Abdulreza Rahmani Fazli, says that Iran hopes China can be one of the security guarantors of peace in the region. He emphasized that it is crucial for countries like China and Russia and mediators like Turkey and Pakistan to play a role as guarantors amid uncertainty. Just hours after the truce took effect, the Bahrain's Interior Ministry said 2 people sustained light injuries following an Iranian drone attack in Bahrain. A number of houses were also damaged in the Sitra area as a result of shrapnel falling from the interception of an Iranian drone. The US president says he has agreed to suspend US attacks for 14 days, subject to Iran reopening the Strait of Hormuz. The US has received a 10-point plan from Iran. The US president wrote on Sunday that a whole civilization will die if Tehran did not meet his demands ahead of a Tuesday deadline. Some Republicans expressed concern, with former ally Marjorie Taylor Greene calling the rhetoric evil and madness. China and Russia block a Bahraini draft encouraging coordinated efforts to protect commercial vessels in the Strait of Hormuz in the United Nations. 11 of the 15 members of the UN Security Council voted in favour, but the vetoes prevented the adoption of the measure. Vice President of the United States, JD Vance, met with Hungarian leader Viktor Orban as part of a strategy to support right-wing populist allies in Europe. The visit comes as Hungary prepares for a pivotal national election in coming weeks. Brent crude oil drops nearly 14% to below $95 a barrel, while US crude fell to under $97. Iran said it would allow safe transit through the Strait of Hormuz for 2 weeks if attacks against it stop. Preliminary findings from the United Nations show 1 Indonesian peacekeeper was killed by an Israeli tank projectile and 2 others by an IED likely placed by Hezbollah. The United Nations called the incidents unacceptable and said they could amount to war crimes under international law. Starting the bulletin with some breaking news, hours after a US-Iran truce took effect, Bahrain's Interior Ministry has said that 2 people sustained light injuries following an Iranian drone attack in Bahrain. In a post on X, the Bahraini Interior Ministry said that 2 citizens sustained minor injuries and a number of houses were damaged in the Sitra area as a result of shrapnel falling from the interception of an Iranian drone. Breaking out of Europe, EU top diplomat Kaja Kallas has welcomed the 2-week ceasefire between the United States and Iran, calling it a step back from the brink. She said the truce provides a much-needed window to reduce threats, halt missile strikes, resume shipping and create space for diplomacy toward a lasting agreement. Kallas added that the European Union is ready to support these efforts and is in close contact with partners in the region. Also out of Europe, France's President Emmanuel Macron has welcomed the ceasefire between the United States and Iran, calling the agreement a very good thing. He said he expects the truce to be fully respected in the coming days and weeks, allowing diplomatic negotiations to take place across the region. Macron added that France's wish is for the ceasefire to fully include Lebanon. Also out of China, the Foreign Ministry said it welcomes the ceasefire between the United States and Iran and has also said that it has made efforts towards lasting peace in West Asia. On a UN resolution regarding the Strait of Hormuz, China stated that the draft submitted with Russia is objective, fair and aims to ease regional tensions and believes it will receive broad support. China added that it hopes all parties will work to facilitate the early resumption of normal shipping through the strait. Now out of Lebanon, the Lebanese army has warned citizens against returning to the southern parts of the country where Israel continues military operations. The army said people should avoid areas where Israeli forces have advanced, as they could still be exposed to ongoing attacks. Now, out of Israel, the opposition leader Yair Lapid has criticised Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu over the US-Iran ceasefire, calling it a diplomatic disaster. Lapid said Israel was not at the negotiation table when decisions were made on core national security issues. He claimed the military and public performed their duties, but Netanyahu failed diplomatically and strategically. He warned that repairing the damage caused by what he called arrogance and lack of planning would take years, and that none of Netanyahu's own goals were met during the ceasefire process. Lapid's comments came via social media posting highlighting broad opposition frustration over Israel's exclusion from the two-week ceasefire agreement between the US and Iran. The opposition leader called for reassessment of Israel's diplomatic strategy to prevent future setbacks to national security. Now we're joined live by Aharon Levako, an Israeli journalist, joining us now from Tel Aviv inside Israel. Aharon, thanks so much for joining us once again back on the bulletin. Now, what can we make of these comments from the opposition leader? Does he have a valid point that Israel was excluded from these negotiations? And how's the reaction inside Israel to this recent development of a two-week ceasefire?
It's a little bit of a contradiction, because on one hand he's saying it was a political disaster by the Israeli government. Mm-hmm. But then on the other hand, he's saying Israel was left out of the negotiating process. So there is a clear, dichotomy there. But what I've read actually is that Donald Trump's administration informed Israel, the Israeli government, before the decision was made. So whether Israel was part of the negotiation to make the ceasefire or not, Israel was informed. Now, did Israel have a say on it? I don't know about that. Donald Trump, the direct negotiations were between America and Iran for this ceasefire. Now, is Israel obliged also to keep this ceasefire? That's a big question, because I can tell you twice during the night, about 3 o'clock in the morning, I was awoken by sirens. Missiles were fired at us. Now, who were they fired by? We know that they were fired by the Houthis in the south and by Hezbollah in the north. So maybe they weren't a direct attack by Iran, but everyone knows that the Houthis and Hezbollah are proxies of Iran. So maybe the Iranians are agreeing to the ceasefire, but they're getting their proxies to do the dirty work. Look, there's a lot of question mark over this ceasefire. What is the rationale behind it? Is it just so that the Straits of Hormuz can open up and all those ships that are sitting there can get out and bring in fuel? Donald Trump's not stupid. He's a master of the deal. He knows what he's doing. That doesn't mean I fully trust in him, but he's got a good record. We're going to have to sit back and see what happens here. But the Israeli public, it's a little bit too early to respond, because it happened at 3 o'clock in the morning, this ceasefire. Today is the last day of Passover, so the nation is on holiday. But there's a lot of skepticism. My feel is that there will be a lot of skepticism and even a lot of anger. Like, Donald Trump, come on, why are you stopping? Why are you allowing the Iranians to kind of psychologically get an edge here? Because they believe, the Iranian regime believe, that this is a great victory and that they are bringing their enemies to the table once again. So no doubt there'll be skepticism, pessimism, anger, because in a way we've lost a little bit of the momentum during this war. Time will tell, but in the meantime, like I said, we've been attacked already since the ceasefire.
Mm-hmm. Aaron, please don't go far. We're just moving to our next development. Coming now out of Lebanon, attention turns to Hezbollah's response to the US-Iran ceasefire, as Israel maintains the Lebanese front is separate. According to experts, few in Lebanon trust Israel's intentions, and Iran has insisted that any peace deal must cover the entire region, including Lebanon. Hezbollah's involvement has expanded the conflict and diverted Israeli focus, giving the group political leverage in potential negotiations. The question remains whether the Lebanon front will be addressed during the 2-week ceasefire, as Hezbollah has criticised the government for failing to secure Israel's agreement on past deals. For now, Lebanon watches and waits as regional tensions remain high and diplomatic uncertainty persists. Back to you, Aaron. Now, of course, the issue of Lebanon in these negotiations remains very prominent. I've seen reports saying that the Iranian 10-point deal stipulates that there must be an end to hostilities in Lebanon, in Yemen, in Iran as well. I've seen reports saying that the Israeli government has said that Lebanon is not included. So could we see Lebanon and activity in Lebanon become a potential pain point in these negotiations? And what's your thought on what we could see play out in Lebanon over the next couple of weeks if indeed these negotiations in Pakistan become successful?
Yeah, 100%. The Iranians are relying on their proxies, like I mentioned earlier. Hezbollah, situated in Lebanon, are probably, now that Hamas have been more or less crippled, Hezbollah are the -- main proxy of the Iran. The Houthis are in the shadows there, waiting. And but Hezbollah, you know, if Israel finishes off Hezbollah, which they are trying to do at the moment, they've penetrated inside of South Lebanon, 20 miles, 32, 34 kilometers inside of Lebanon up to what's called the Litani River, then Iran's leverage is reduced. So the Iranian regime will do all they can to try and save the life of their main proxy, Hezbollah. And you're right, it could well be a sticky point in these negotiations. Time will tell. But you know, during the night, the IDF were fighting still with the Lebanese. So, like you said, there are differing opinions. Is a ceasefire with Lebanon part of this deal or not? Time will tell. But you know, where Israeli defense forces see any dangers, they've changed to a zero tolerance policy. And like I said, twice in the night I was woken up to sirens. Missiles are still fired, whether there's an official ceasefire or not. History has showed that you know, a piece of paper, a word, can mean absolutely nothing to these kind of terrorist regimes that are in power. And that's what this war is all about. You know, like I said, Donald Trump, he's not fooled. He knows that the Iranians, they have a history of saying one thing, but not carrying through, or being actual barefaced lies, including, you know, saying that they only have missiles with a 2,000-kilometer range. But we've found out recently that they actually have missiles up to 4,000-kilometer range. Everyone's sitting, we're going to sit back, we're going to watch, see how this plays out for sure. Indeed.
And Aaron, please thank you very much for joining us today on the Bulletin, especially given that it is Passover, and please stay safe over there in Israel. Now to Singapore, IATA Director General Willie Walsh warned that global jet fuel supplies could take months to recover, even if the Strait of Hormuz remains open. Walsh said disruptions to Middle East refining capacity affect not only jet fuel, but other refined products, meaning supply restoration will be slow. He noted that the ceasefire announcement led to an early drop in crude prices around 15%, showing immediate market impacts. However, Walsh cautioned that returning to adequate supply levels will take months, not weeks, emphasising the importance of energy security. He added that Asia faces particularly critical jet fuel challenges and governments may need to prioritise strategic reserves to ensure stability. Let's listen in now.
And if it were to reopen and remain open, I think it will still take a period of months to get back to where supply needs to be, given the disruption to the refining capacity in the Middle East, which is a critical part of the global supply of refined products, and not just jet fuel, for other products as well. So it will probably take months. But you've already seen, with the announcement, there was a very significant reduction in the crude price. I think it went down, the last time I looked, it was about 15% lower as a result of just the announcement that was made. So it has some early effect, but getting back to where we would need to be will take a period of months. I don't think it's going to happen in weeks. I think this data will help to encourage governments, or I'd like to think it will help to encourage governments to have greater energy security around a critical issue like the availability of jet, because in Asia that's the critical issue at the moment.
We're now joined by Glenn Grant, who's an ex-advisor to the Defence Minister of Ukraine and a geopolitical commentator, joining us now from Riga. Glenn, a pleasure to have you back on the bulletin. Thanks very much for joining us. Of course, the key word here is energy security. It's been a big linkage between so many geopolitical events this past year. Now, how do we see energy security affecting conflict around the world broadly? Of course, the financial pressure from energy security and the role that it plays is a major contributor towards conflict, but also negotiations. Do you think that the markets had a place to play in Trump's announcement of these negotiations that we're seeing later this week?
The markets always have a place to play, and probably much more important than people realise. I mean, your previous speaker was talking about the the problems with jet fuel. Well, Air Baltic has already asked the government in Latvia for a 30 million loan, euro loan, to cover this actions that are happening at the moment, and some of the international airlines are actually putting prices up between 3 and 4 times for long haul flights. So I think we're going to see a major disruption over the airline industry in the coming weeks, unless something changes. And that of course will have affected Trump's decision, because he is bound to have been put under pressure by some of the major businesses and some of the shareholders who are of course in his party, in Republican Party, who won't like what they're seeing. Now, how much effect it has over the world in other countries is very, very difficult to say at the moment. I mean, how many of them can survive with what they get? How many of them the prices will go up and there will be literally hunger because of it, is hard to judge. But the coming 2 weeks, I think we'll see whether prices will stabilize during this ceasefire, whether prices will come down again and things will balance out, or whether there will just be a steady climb because of the shortages and until things become critical. The critical figure is $5 for a gallon in America. When it gets to $5 for a gallon, you're virtually on civil war, and Trump knows this.
Do you think that his background as a businessman and his fame of the art of the deal will help in these negotiations that we'll see later in this week, or is it hard to say at this point?
No, I don't, because I don't think that any of his crew are actually astute enough to balance out the geopolitical ramifications of what they see. This will just be basic. Do we make money out of this or not? For the predictions, are we going to get peace or not, so that Trump comes out for his Nobel Peace Prize, or not? And I would just add to as what your other speakers have said, we cannot trust the Iranians. 2 weeks is what they want to rearm, to rebuild places that have been destroyed and get themselves ready for the next phase. Because if they haven't been destroyed, there will be a next phase. You can be absolutely sure of that.
Glenn, don't go far. We're now moving to some updates. Now coming, the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said that Ukraine is preparing the European component of security proposals that were recently agreed upon during talks in the West Asia and Gulf states. Ukrainian expertise has been instrumental in supporting defence efforts, resulting in long-term cooperation agreements. Zelensky has also noted that Ukrainian military personnel are involved in consultations on operations in the Strait of Hormuz, highlighting the global importance of safe navigation and the need for long-term security interests to be prioritised. Zelensky has warned of widespread instability caused by the situation around Iran, emphasising that global markets have been destabilised and economic consequences could be significant. Let's listen in to his statements.
Українські військові беруть участь в консультаціях щодо того, як далі працюватиме Ормузька протока, безпечне мореплавство – це глобальна цінність. Ми це знаємо по досвіду захисту в Чорному морі. Потрібно, щоб всі у світі це також цінували. Звісно, ситуація зараз може змінюватися щодня і доволі суттєво, особливо зважаючи на те, що відбувається з Іраном та у відносинах між Європою та Америкою. Але інтереси наші довготривалі. Усіх в Європі. Передусім це інтерес безпеки. Має бути і є чітке наше внутрішнє реагування на нестабільність, якої зараз дуже багато через ситуацію навколо Ірану. Ситуацію, що надто довго не вирішується. Фактично, всі ринки світу дестабілізовані, і економічні наслідки можуть бути значні.
Now, Glenn, what do you see as Ukraine's interest in these processes? Are they looking to make the most of their knowledge that they've attained over the last 4 years of war with Russia? Are they looking to leapfrog onto negotiations, possibly between Ukraine and Russia? Or are they looking to shore up some alliances in this region? What do you take?
Oh, this is you've got to go right back to self-interest of Zelensky on this. First of all, that he's in a pretty difficult position for future re-election, which he now says he wants, because most of the people in Ukraine want him out. And there are reasons for this. One is that he keeps choosing his friends into high positions who don't then do a very good job and are often Russian-leaning. And the second one is, of course, he's been making money for this himself. And now, what is he doing? I mean, at the moment, he's acting like a salesman and business development manager for Ukraine, using all the resources for Ukraine. In some cases, wisely. In some other cases, there are a lot of underlying problems with what he's doing. I mean, he's already taken about 200 members of the military out. This is probably all he can afford to take out, because all these people are skilled, and they're the skilled people who've been working on the front line. You can't afford to lose too many of those. Secondly, who is going to get the contracts for the Ukrainian things that they're selling? Are these going to be the companies that he loves and looks after and supports, that pay him? Or is it going to be open for everybody? Because if it's not open for everybody, on a proper commercial basis, then there's going to be a lot of unease in the business community in Ukraine if he's favouring his favourites, which is the suspicion. And one thing is in international terms, is that a lot of his favourites have failed because they were people getting money who actually weren't up to the job of delivering. So that is actually could be a problem downstream. But what's he getting back for all this? Well, hopefully he's getting back money for Ukraine and political support for Ukraine that he wouldn't have got in the first before. Don't think that there's any love for the Middle East from him and his government, because there isn't. This is a purely commercial, transactional activity that he's undertaking. And at the moment, got to give him credit for it. He's doing a good job. But this has got a long way to go and a long way to run yet.
Indeed. Glenn, thanks very much for your thoughts today and joining us once again in the Bulletin. Pleasure to have you back. Now to North Korea. The country has fired several short-range ballistic missiles towards the sea earlier today, marking its second such launch in 2 days. The missiles were reportedly launched from the eastern coastal Wonsan area, and they travelled about 240 kilometres each. South Korea's military now remains on high alert to repel any provocations in coordination with the United States. Moreover, South Korean media reported that a previous projectile launched yesterday may have failed after displaying abnormalities earlier in the flight. Early this week, North Korea announced that leader Kim Jong-un observed a test of an upgraded solid fuel engine for weapons, citing it as a strategic advancement. These back-to-back missile tests come amid clear messages from North Korea that it has no intentions of improving ties with Seoul, despite the South's efforts to restore long-dormant dialogue. North Korea has also issued strong warnings to South Korea over recent drone incidents and human rights resolutions. And that's all we've got time for. Please keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world. Hello and welcome.